Okay, let's do a quick tutorial on this. Like and subscribe. No. So,
Who's excited?
who's excited?
Who's excited?
Is that what it is?
It's like an initiating function.
Oh, you're right. Don't forget notification squad, bell, blah blah blah. Right. This is all for the recording. So, I believe Eric started with this, and that is like Dan Abramoff's question, where he talked about like object.method versus a copy of that function just being invoked as a baseless function. How do we feel? Okay, I'm going to say a lot of these words, but if at any point I go too fast, you can just give me this look right here. And we'll know, and I will know I made too large of a logical leap. So the idea is that most of you are going to try to understand this keyword as it relates to self. So the easiest thing that I like to say, it's kind of snarky. So like in my college class, like I start with some of these questions. The first thing I like to get across is that words mean things. It's very snarky, but it's true. Words mean things. So if we start with the word self, what does the word self mean in English? Right? Like if I were to say like, man, I'm really thinking about myself right now, or man, I don't know. Self sounds kind of like pretentious in a lot of ways when you use it as an example. But I'm like, man, I'm just not feeling myself right now. Who is self in that context? It will always be the person that's saying it, me, right? So if you were to say self, who would that always refer to no matter what and where you say it? Right, like you in this case, right? But what about this word? If I'm riding the subway, and it's like, stand clear of the closing doors, please, boop, boop. And it's like, hey, just, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, being held by the train's dispatcher, and you're like, man, this is amazing. I love it. Or you're eating, right, later on at lunch, and you're eating yumps, like yummy dumplings. You're like, man, this is delicious. The this in both of those refer to what? Whatever context I'm in. So far, so good, right? One is obviously about how reliable the MTA system is, and the other is this delicious meal I'm eating. So this word in English really changes entirely based on its context. So far, so good. So self and this are V different. Yeah? I'm trying to stay hip and with it. So if I don't know. Is it working?
Not so yes.
Am I young? All right, cool.
Like over hip.
Over hip? Yeah, I'm like a gross character. I'm like an exaggeration. I always tell other lead instructors as I'm helping them that lecture is nothing more than a 90-minute play. I'm just performing for you. If you see me over here, like out on the floor, I'm actually exactly the same. All right, let's go back to Rubyland for a second. And the idea is that in the context of person, right? Here, in the context of person, in the person class, what is self in the person class? It's the class itself, right? It's person, the class. So if I were to do self.method, all of a sudden when I define it, this is a capital K class method, right? Very good. Now inside a regular old, right? Regular old, oh sorry, that's JavaScript. Old method, all right? Inside a instance method, now the scope has changed. And what is self here? It's the instance, right? So like anything that I write inside the instance method, the scope has changed. So self now is the instance. And so here in person, self is person. Here in any old instance method, self is instance, right? So far so good. Let's reveal our votes here. I'm throwing it back. What? You can't do that. That doesn't do anything. No, be careful with that one, you know? If anyone knows American Sign Language, you can get real dicey real quick. Nobody knows American Sign Language. Very good. Okay. Good deal. Well, it's not on the recording, but like, you know, I don't know how you could Google this, but like this is like probably not a good thing. It means poop. So, great. We have reviewed self in Ruby. Check. All right. And so self is not this. I have been in interviews before where I've interviewed candidates and I'm like, oh, hey, like, talk to me about like this keyword in JavaScript. Like, oh, it's basically like self. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I had to basically play along for 29 more minutes because that's not correct. No, that was very savage of me, no. The person was very nice. There was other technical like gaps in knowledge, but self is not this. Cool? All right, so there's 4 rules that cover this. Like, developers hate them, right? Once you learn these 4 rules. Great, we'll start with number 3, because that just makes sense. Here we have just a regular old object, right? We have like a dog object. And then we have just 2 keys. Name and what is this? In order to get to this function, it has to look like this. I'm sorry, it has to look like that. I'm trying not to say the word this unless I mean the keyword this. So in order to get to name in the dog object, using the dot operator, it would be dog dot name, right? And so in order to get to this function, in order to get to the function here, it would be dog dot what is this? And the same. Yeah, just to get to the function, whether we invoke it or not. Yeah. But good point. It would be dog dot what is this? So here you have the literal object, right? The little curly boys here. I stole that from Graham, by the way. Curly boys, powerful stuff. Yeah. Curly brackets, whatever. Great. So you have literal an object here. Dog dot what is this? So if I have this function being invoked on an object, it is now a method. That's literally just the difference, the definition. So in mod 1, when we were talking about Ruby and we're defining methods all the time, have you ever heard in Ruby that everything in Ruby is an object? Have you heard that? If you haven't, everything in Ruby is an object. Very good, now you have it. And if everything in Ruby is an object, every time I define or write a function for any object, by definition, it's a method. And so that's why for the first time when you get to mod 3, you start hearing the word function. Cool? What the? Yes? No? Yeet?
There you go. Now I understand.
Oh, sorry. Cool. So here, right, when you have the function being invoked on an object, it's a method. The scope of this, what is this, is inside the dog object. So this, inside the scope of the dog object, will be the, yes, very good. The scope, right, inside dog, D-O-G, all up in this business. The scope of this is the dog. So far, so good. Yeah? Okay, cool. Whew. All right, that just looks basically like self, right? Nothing crazy. All right. We talked about how this is happening, where functions say this, return this. If I just invoke it as a baseless function, this should always be what? The window. Oh yeah, that drawing is way gone. All right. How do we feel about the window object being the global object and that scope? It doesn't help if like only 4 of you like are thumbs up. Help me help you, you know what I'm saying? Okay, cool. Alright, so I'm going to review it ultra, super, mega, hyper fast. And this time I'm not going to do it in red because I realize that you actually can't see in the back and nobody said anything. Joke's on me. So, how do we feel about the browser running your JavaScript? Check or hold? Yeah? Alright, so again, art school. We have like these functions, right, that go on the stack. Have you heard of the call stack before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alright, what does that mean? That was the first time you heard the call stack? Oh. Okay. I just teach JavaScript a little bit differently. That's all. So the idea is this is how your JavaScript code runs. We're gonna like do it ultra mega fast. So, all right, here we go. There's two different types of phases of execution of your JavaScript. I know it got real serious. The first one is a read-only, and the second one is the actual execution. How do we feel about that? That's how we described hoisting. All right, it was a read-only and then execution. On line 2, I'm simply defining the function. I'm not invoking it. I'm not calling it. It is not running. It is simply, hey, I'm just going to create a function here. That's it. On line 6, am I invoking a function? Yes or no? How do you know? The curlies? What the? No, it's the bananas. These are parentheses, right? Right. The fact that I have the bananas here, the parentheses. For those that don't know what a banana is, the idea is that it's being invoked here versus just the function definition. All right. I'm calling it, and now I am not. So if I were to call it with like a URL or whatever the hell it is, purple, regular old method. I write some weird stuff. If I'm calling it, then this function, fetch, will go onto the call stack. And then fetch does what? What does fetch return? Promise. All right, pinky promise. If it returns, it pops off the call stack. And then it continues going down your code. And then when's the next time something gets invoked? On 25. 25, a function will get called, and then it will complete, and then it will pop off the call stack. The stack is only useful here is if functions call functions that call functions that call functions. So for example, you have an event listener that's listening for event. That function is running in the browser. It's just always listening. It's like, yo, dog, did you do a click yet? Okay, cool, I'll wait, no big deal. Whenever you're ready. The second the user clicks, it will then fire another function. It will go on the stack.
So like the order of operations are being called, but then like it happens in reverse order. That's what you're saying in terms of the call stack. Is that true or not true? In terms of functions. So it's like if fetch happens first and then doggo happens second, doggo is going to be the first one that gets called in the call stack, and then fetch will be the second one. That doesn't seem like
not exactly. Your code, JavaScript is known as a single-threaded, multi-paradigm programming language. What that means is single-threaded, you can only do one thing at a time. Your code will run, read, and execute top to bottom, left to right. Multi-paradigm meaning I can write functional code in the way that it's done right now, and I can also write object-oriented code in the same way that you've seen it with Ruby, and you've seen JavaScript with this class syntax and creating objects in that way. And so you can do both. They're not mutually exclusive, so you can combine both functional and class syntax. It's very powerful. Cool? That makes sense. I said a lot of like intense words just now. Okay. All right, okay, that's cool. For those that don't feel like doing the thumbs up, thumbs down, all I will say is this is a blanket statement. If you choose to participate, you will get more out of it. Access Labs, unlike every other campus, I usually say this as sort of like a motivating factor, and that is, it is extremely expensive to be here. Opportunity cost-wise as well. I will say the investment in you, in how you want to be, and who you want to be, after this program, starts with how you are in this program. You have a chance to change your life and to hit reset. Be here. You know what I'm saying? All right, cool. So it will run 6, and 6 will go on the call stack. But because 6 doesn't call any other functions, it returns a promise, it just pops off the call stack, and then it continues running. Hits 25, that pops on the call stack. 25 finishes, and it pops off. All right? Cool. Yeah?
Just
Just stretching? Noise. Noise. No, trust me, stretching is better. It's better than what I've seen other students do, and that's this. Which is like the neck stretch, but then they're not looking. All right, cool. Ridiculous. All right. So how do we feel about 3 and 4? Not bad, right? So far, so good? All right, cool.
I got a question. If you go back to where you just were in the logo,
In what?
we had the constant logo, the dog,
Oh, okay.
where you were like a minute ago.
On the JavaScript.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you said on line 25, it went on the stack, popped off the stack.
Mm-hmm.
But that function is invoked, and in there, it defines a second function, which has a for each loop.
Oh, yeah.
Does only when all that's completed does it go off the call stack?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. All right, so does anyone need me to repeat that question? All right, okay. Tough crowd. All right. So the idea is that Eric went over bind, call, and apply, so I won't re-explain it. But what I will say is that he went through a very, very practical example, and sometimes in that practicality, the concept of bind, call, and apply can get lost. The idea is that I want to be able to create a function that's reusable by as many different people, objects as possible. So if I use the this keyword in the same way that I use self, it scales. And that's the idea. There are times, as you saw yesterday, that I will have to force what the this keyword becomes. Because as you know, the this keyword is based on the execution context. When and where it is invoked will determine what the this keyword evaluates to. So far, so good? When and where the this keyword is invoked will determine what it evaluates to, whether it be the window object, the dog object, or whatever. Sometimes I just want to force it to be something, and I never want to change it afterwards. So for example, if I had a function that says say name, like hello, your boy says hello from New York at 1 o'clock, whatever. If I wanted to, right, I have person 1 here, a little Andy here, person 2 John, and person 3 Gary. Were you part of the John, Gary? Were you there for Chrome Boy?
Yeah.
Oh, the old little Andy, yeah. The idea is I want to be able to set this keyword and lock it in. I want to bind it to either person 1, person 2, or person 3. So if I were to do something, don't worry about call and apply. Do say name, which is just this function here, and I were to dot bind person 3, inside bound person 3, what is the this keyword? Who says person 3? Should be pretty clear, right? Okay, so person 3 is just an object with a key of name pointing to the string Gary. So if bound person 3 is invoked with LA at 1 p.m., I should see Gary says hello from LA at 1 p.m. because Gary is person 3, and this dot name is actually Gary. How do we feel about that? All right? So I want to force it. That's all it does, is it forces the this keyword. So let's. Oh no, you guys can like whisper and talk. I just want to know if there was like a question that came out of it.
I was just so because you call bind on the same name, that gets the this keyword in the function that it calls, or
Yes, it forces the this keyword. It locks it in.
okay.
It binds it.
Does it do anything else or just bind?
That's all it does. It will just bind the this keyword. Cool? All right, let's actually kind of go into an example here. So I have this doggo. Key of name, nothing crazy. All right, I have some favorite snacks, which is just an array. And I have something called eat snacks. And I have eat snacks function twice. So before we kind of get into this, all right, let me get rid of this. Bloop, bloop. Let's do this. Let's throw some extra spaces in here for absolutely no reason. Because JavaScript space agnostic, this code will still run. It's so powerful. So here we have eat snacks, which is the function keyword. Function keyword will create its own execution context. I'll get to that. And all it does is it takes this .favesnacks. So remember, inside the scope of doggo, what is the this keyword? Inside doggo, what is the this keyword? Just the this keyword. Yeah. It's the doggo object. Right? It's the doggo object. So this .favesnacks is essentially doggo.favesnacks. Right? If this is the doggo object, then doggo.favesnacks and this .favesnacks, they look the same. Right? If that's the case, this .favesnacks or doggo.favesnacks is in fact an array.
So I have a quick question. So is it like in Ruby where you don't have to call self? You kind of just call, if this was Ruby, you could just call favesnacks and then do your iteration? Or favesnacks, but or in JavaScript, you actually have to explicitly call this. So in an instance method, and I wanted to do like an iteration or a map on some sort of a class, sometimes you didn't have to call self dot and then your iteration. You call maybe your instance method and then your iteration. I was just wondering if it was the same for JavaScript.
To answer that question as fast as possible, because it's going to go down into the...
Just say yes or no.
And no.
Okay.
Yeah. So Ruby has in the programming language something called the implied self. Have you talked about this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This keyword is never implied.
Okay, cool.
All right. So this .favesnacks is an array, and on an array I can call array methods. So for each being an array method, good to go. Now what I can do is I can create a function inline right here as a callback. Right. So for each takes a callback function, right? So I can do one of two things. I can either do a function here, boop boop, and here I'm just gonna throw some extra spaces for fun, and you'll see in a second. What does this callback receive inside the for each? Yes, that's right.
No, I was going to say that.
Yeah. For each of these, it's about to do this one thing. Right? So it's going to receive some sort of snack. So far, so good. And then here, all I'm going to do is log. Dang it, my shortcuts are backfiring on me. Snippets are powerful. All right, all I'm going to do is log snack. That's one way to do it. I can create this function straight in line. Or, it could be a dirtbag. Yeah. And I could do this. Bloop. And I'm just going to go bloop. I'm going to be like a cool callback. Did literally nothing. What's the difference between this and this? Ready? Bloop. Oh, dang it. That didn't work out as well as I wanted it to be. I got you, fam. You ready? What's the difference between A or B?
Anonymous.
One is anonymous, and one is a defined function outside. Right? That's literally the only difference, right? I've literally calling this callback that I've defined here on line 22, or I've just written it in line. So far, so good. Now, if we say that they're in fact both the same, right? Where they're both the same, a cool callback, baseless function, check or hold. What I mean by baseless, I mean like I'm not calling this function on anything. It's not being invoked on an object. All right? And baseless functions, this keyword in a baseless function will be that's right, the window object, right? Diversify your bonds. So, thank you. this is just going to be the window object. Question?
Doesn't line 16 need taking off an argument?
On line 6? 16.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm getting kind of curious about how you set that up.
We're going to go into the weeds today. All right. So this is a callback function, right? Check it out. This function on 16 to 18. Invoked, yes or no? Are you sure? It's being invoked. I can see the bananas right here, right? It's being invoked?
No.
It's defined. It's defined.
I'm defining it straight in line.
It's reading.
That's right. If I was going to invoke it, I would do this. Bloop! With the bananas, or for those that prefer, the parentheses. So, this is not being invoked. Yes? Is that being invoked, yes or no?
Yes.
They're the same.
How would the one not be invoked?
Function definition.
This would be invoking it,
But isn't the principal
right? We will do an optional breakout after this that we will go into callbacks. Cool? For those that want to stick around for it. Because this is a very huge point of contention understanding JavaScript. Like, why don't we invoke things like inline? How do you pass in the argument? How does this get snack is usually what the question is. If I don't pass in snack here, rather, if I don't pass in, bloop, 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 if I don't pass in the snack, how does it know? Right? That's kind of what the question is. All right, for those that want to do it, we'll do that after. But in the meantime, huh?
I'll hold my question, or the way that I think I'm doing it.
Awesome. In that case, let's take a trip to Flavortown. So we'll do a for each. I'm just passing in this callback. In this a cool callback, all right, what is this? Window, right? Ja? Cool, that's exactly correct. I'm not here to trick you. That means that in this for each, when I do a cool callback, if I were to try to do something like console log, let's go back to the other code. Boop, boop, boop. All right, so we're good on that, just the callback not being invoked. All right. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. Anytime. There we go. If I want to console log, all right, let's not do that. Let's do this. Function snack. If I do this dot name, we've determined that this here is going to be the window. So window dot name is eating snack. That's what's going to happen. How do we feel about that? That's an aggressive thumbs up. I like it. How do you feel about that? What is window.name? This one's always really annoying and tricky. Window by default has a key of name, and it's always empty string. Cool. So for all intents and purposes, like empty string is eating snack. Cool. So there's a way that we can force this keyword though, right? I don't want it to be window. That's trash. It's a 1-star user experience. I want it to be doggo, right? So on this function, what is a way that we can force or have this keyword bound to something? Bind it. So dot bind, and what do we want to bind? Y'all getting real meta on me, but what specifically do we want to bind? What is it that we're looking for? The doggo object, right? Very good. Be good. Bunch of clowns over here. I'm just kidding. So remember what the scope of this is inside the doggo. And the scope of this keyword inside doggo is in fact doggo. So if doggo and this are the same, that's how we made that jump. That's how we made the jump. I was just memorizing the jump.
So this function is not baseless?
This function is in fact baseless, which means that by default, this keyword will be the window. If I want to force this keyword in there, right? I don't know why that's like I'm like packing a bag forcefully, right? And I want to force it. I want to bind a certain object to this keyword. I can do that. If I wanted to, I can be a dirtbag, all right? I can have a const, right? Like, cool. I can literally be a dirtbag, all right? You'll drink LaCroix water. Very good. I can just bind dirtbag if I wanted to. It will force this keyword in.
It only changes when you use the dot bind, right? Because I thought, like, since this would be the window, wouldn't you just be binding the window?
What?
Okay, so you said that in a baseless function, it's the window.
It will default to the window, correct?
Oh, okay. So then when you use bind, it changes to the object.
That's right. Bind will literally force this keyword to be anything I want. And you can do whatever you like.
I'm just confused on like the difference between baseless and not baseless, because I thought if you're calling a function within an object, this should be the object. Is it because it's within a for each?
Yes, it's in the for each, and the for each takes a callback. And that callback can be defined inline or defined outside and passed in, which means that that function itself is a baseless function.
Can you show an example of what is a not baseless function? Just so I can
Sure, a not baseless function, right? Const, right? Some object. Here's the base. I can have a key of yeet pointing to call, and then I can have a function in this object pointing to, guess what? Powerful stuff. Why didn't that, oh, embarrassing. This would not be a baseless function because it's inside, it's a key within an object. Because how can I possibly get to this function? I must do what? I should stop being so obnoxious, but yes. Cool? Not baseless.
So what is the difference if you use arrow function? Isn't Eric saying something about arrow functions that automatically binds it?
What a beautiful transition to my next statement. I will pay you later. The question is, what about arrow functions, right? Like how do we use arrow functions here? So remember, how do we feel so far about just this? Just line 19, bind doggo. I'm gonna get to your question. Let me just finish thought. Good? Awesome. And so inside doggo, bloop, 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 this keyword is doggo, right? So that means I went here. All right. So if the arrow function is the only differentiator and it binds this, can I do, oh my god, I'm in JavaScript hell, here we go. Eat snacks, arrow, power, all right, just arrow. It's going to be a function, and it's going to do the exact same thing. I should just write it out. This dot fave snacks dot for each, boom, boom, boom. And now this receives a callback. I used the function keyword before, but if I know the arrow function is literally going to bind this, then I can go bloop, bloop. Oh, embarrassing. Dot bind this with the function keyword, or just that smooth, sexy arrow. And all it does, the difference between this line and this line is function keyword, arrow function, and dot bind this. So the arrow function will literally just bind this. How do we feel about that? Oh, wow, damn. All right. That was good, actually. Oh, yes. Just reveal those votes, you know what I'm saying? All right, cool, that's basically it. The arrow function will bind this. That's really about it. Nothing crazy, right? So why would we use the function keyword? That's a great question. The question was, why would we ever use the function keyword? Very good, very good. Let's try it one more time. What a great question, my God. Thanks for asking, Jack. Plus. All right, Y arrow. Bloop, can't do that. All right, great. Here we did function keyword, and it creates its own execution context. If I didn't do the function keyword here, instead I said, yo dog, I heard you like arrow functions. So I put an arrow function in your arrow function. Anyways, you have the function keyword, but you just have the arrow function here. I'm going to try to do, right, the old this.favesnacks for each move. I'm not going to finish it, because that's not important. Yeah, you can see all of them. When I use the arrow function versus the keyword function, this does not create its own context execution. It will have bound this at the higher level. Y arrow is going to try to bind this from what the this was of doggo. And this from doggo is the window. So we have window here. This is all what this keyword is. We have window here. And we have window here. Cool? Y arrow will try to have bound oops, just kidding. Bind this, and bind this is going to take the execution context and this keyword from what it was from doggo, which was the window. Because doggo is a baseless object. That's not like a real thing. Like, it wasn't like something.doggo. Does that make sense? Doggo is sort of like on its own. So what is this keyword for doggo? Like, as like a baseless object. I don't like saying that. It's the window. So that means that here, without the first function keyword, this.favesnacks will be window.favesnacks. How do we feel about this? Remember what dot bind this is. Dot bind this is going to take this from outside of doggo. So sometimes you need to set the keyword function from this based on the context. So function keyword is still important. When it comes to object-oriented programming, you will almost never use it. So yeah, it's powerful. When you get to React in Mod 4, man, I don't know if I've ever seen it really. Yeah. Exactly. Huh? Yeah. Anyways, in Mod 4 React, arrow functions are your friend.
Do you think some browsers still use the bind method instead of the arrow method?
Oh wow. Yeah, let's get into that. Cool. So how do we feel so far about just eat snacks and dot bind this? So far so good? All right, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something wacky, really wacky. And I'm just going to say something like, inside of doggo, right, this is the doggo. So I'm just going to be a dirtbag. Ooh, first strike. And then I'm going to say something, or I'll just do, oh God. I want to see some old ES5. This is some dirtbag ES5. Ugh, gross. And so I can, instead of this, I can bind that if I wanted to. All All right, this is not going to work, by the way. You can't just declare variables like this inside an object, but that's the idea behind it. So far, so good. So the question is, do browsers sometimes use bind? Allow me to take you on a tour. There's something called Babel.js, and what this will do is it will take your modern, sexy es6, 7, 8, 9 JavaScript, and it will do what is known as transpile. It will take it, and it will write it as if you wrote ES5, the JavaScript that I have grown up with but do not love. I learned ES5, yes. Who here likes putting in the semicolons? Who here knows where to put them in? Okay, yeah, very few of us. Okay, legacy. This is what a class looks like in ES5. Cool? But more importantly, let's do this. Boop. Disgusting. Anyways, if you are looking at supporting as many browsers as possible, the idea is that even if you write it, you'll run it through something called Babel, and it will spit it out for you. So like inside here, I have forced this keyword to still be, like, because here it's still the dog, right? Inside this function. Remember, like this.facenacks, like this is still the doggo. So I'm gonna lock it in and store it into this dirtbag variable, underscore this. And then I'm gonna just bind it. I'm gonna call it rather this.name. Instead of doing like this.bind. Like bind that, dot bind this. It's the same. This is very important to know because we live in an age of technology where we're so used to the latest and greatest, and we're always in the forefront, but we cannot develop for ourselves alone. Think about it. How many of you have grandmas and grandpas that are like, oh my God, I can't wait for the new iPhone 10, but they still like cling to their flip phone? Do we know folks like this? They're like, oh my God, let me check my schedule, and they pull out a PDA. Okay, all right, might be in a different generation. But the idea is that if we're like, oh, this works in the latest version of Chrome, we cannot force everybody to be on the latest version of Chrome if we're building an app for everybody. Question?
So from a practicality standpoint, does that mean that most of the time we'll be writing like on the example you had before, the es6, writing the function key and then use the arrow functions?
If you understand that what you're really trying to do is bind this keyword, so in the anonymous callback function, this should point to doggo. This is very vanilla JavaScript. React as a framework or library for JavaScript will rely on like class syntax and object-oriented JavaScript. So very often you will always want to bind this to the class. So
like
you'll
if I never
almost
want it to be the window, I just want it to be whatever's in that object. So I want it to be Winfield every time, or
then you'll have to use the arrow function, or you'll do dot bind this.
okay.
So when we call npm in React to start the project, is it like, it has like Babel, like in node package manager?
Yeah, there's something called Babel, Webpack, all this other cool stuff in there. But that's a very Bot 4 question, so we can get to that offline. Cool. How do we feel about like this keyword now? A little bit more better? All right. Cool. Let's talk about some ES6 and some of the power. All right. Boop, boop, boop. Cool. I won't go into the prototype, but what I will do is talk about this README. If you had any questions, somebody, an old instructor, and myself put together these like dissertations of READMEs. They're good. I've had students just straight rip this and then put a blog post up, and then it got sponsored, and I was like, okay. And I was like, great, you owe me 8 cents a month, or whatever it is that they're making. I've never collected. Either way, cool. Awesome. Let's eat that haw. All right, before we actually continue and get started, do y'all want a break? We have been going for quite a little bit. Like a 2-minute bathroom break? All right, cool. Let's do that. Cool, because the recording just started again. Great. The idea is like, again, these are just modern JavaScript syntactical sugar. Nothing's necessarily new, but it will help you as you start to do your research. So when you see things and they're wacky and they don't make no sense, then hopefully because of this lecture, you're like, okay, I can follow. So for example, there's something called object destructuring. And what that allows me to do is create objects based on objects that already exist. Very meta. Here's what I mean. I have this cons, right? Spaceship. It's got Elon Musk, the Zuck, and old Gordon Ramsay looking for the lamb sauce. The idea is, if I do something like const, and I use these curly boys, literally creating an object literal. But I put in variables, bizarre, and then I assign it to a variable that already exists. If I log pilot, it gives me Elon Musk, and if I log chef, I get Gordon Ramsay. It's designed to be like, by the face, right? WTF, by the face. So, takes a second. Okay, just one, very good. The idea is, I can create an object on the fly using this syntax by wrapping it in the curly voice and saying that there is an object called spaceship that exists. I want to create a new object called pilot, and the value for that object will match the key value inside this one. So from spaceship, I want to create an object called pilot. So in spaceship, there's something already called pilot. So pilot, I'm going to pull Elon Musk. So when I reference the variable pilot, it points to Elon Musk. How do we feel about this?
So the inside always has to match the spaceship object, or can it be different?
The question is, does the insides always have to match? Which I feel like in like anatomy, that would be like a weird thing. All right. So the idea is this. If I were to do something like junk, for whatever reason, you can ask Jack about it. It's an inside joke from his class. If I were to try to console log old junk over here, what do you think I will get? Undefined. That's exactly correct. I would get undefined. Because I'm actually, in fact, creating it, it's going to look inside this object and be like, oh, where's that key of junk? And then be like, oh, it's not there. Whatever. I've made it, but it has no real value, so it defaults to undefined. Great assessment.
So.
Yeah, that's why I'm like a call-out kind of person. I have like no idea.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, so when you're doing const pilot equals spaceship, are you creating a new object called pilot, or are you just assigning a variable pilot to the value of pilot in the spaceship?
I'm creating a brand new object.
Okay.
Yeah, so this object now exists in memory.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is it called pilot and not chef?
Oh, I have both, pilot and chef, so I made both.
But the object is called pilot, right?
The
So
object
just
is,
go with the first argument?
it has nothing to do with order, because it's an object, so it's going to look up the key values. So inside spaceship, the first thing it's going to do is, I'm going to make a brand new variable. This is the way it looks. This is the exact same thing as doing this. Oh, sorry. I know, I just jumped back and forth. Boop, boop. Little chef action. Ooh, you like that? Spicy. Oh, sorry, just kidding.
It almost feels like in a way it's kind of like mass assignment.
You can think of it in that way. It's not exactly correct, but
Same kind of concept.
the analogy is good. This and this are exactly the same.
Does it change for arrays?
Does it change for arrays?
'Cause I know like we had, I don't know if other people got to this lab, but like, this is the one that was kind of interesting to me. Like the arrays one, I think there was like an object or an array of colors, and then they wanted you to destructure it, but only using the initials of each color name. So for indigo, we were supposed to write const INDG is equal to
Does anyone else have this exact question?
No,
Okay, in that case, I will get with you
Okay.
offline because it's a lab specific question. But this is the concept behind it. Cool? Alright, good. Oh, you asked the question, so I want to make sure like you felt good about the answer.
On line 20, if you did John, colon, your boy, on 27, would it still be undefined or would it be your boy?
The question is, if I did this, your boy, what would happen? To be perfectly honest, I don't really know. This would be something that I would just run and try. Here, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Boop, boop, boop. The funny, I just gotta like point out something I think is really interesting. Please forgive me, Graham, Eric, anyone else if we don't know something. It's because when we learned it, right, we were like, this is how it works. And so we have created an environment here in the school environment that's so growth mindset and so open-ended that you will ask these weird hypotheticals about things that, like, I wonder if this works, but there's no use case for it. And so because there's no use case for it, we have never experimented and pushed the limits of the language. So sometimes if I'm like, I don't really know what's gonna happen because I've never had to do something like this and I don't see the use case for what I would describe as object destructuring and creating simultaneously in the same line an object that has its own key value pair, because it would, in my opinion, it should look something like this, because I don't know how it's going to know it's its own object. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out, so like don't be like, oh man, you know, Evans doesn't know anything. It's more like, I've never encountered this, there's no use case for it, so this is bizarre, but let's play. Yeah, very good. It's invalid destructuring assignment. You can only pull in keys and assign them to values from an object but you cannot do a key value in the same time as doing it. Cool?
So what benefit does it provide? Like, you know how the arrow function is very quick?
Yeet. Yes. The question is, let me get rid of this. Bloop, 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 bloop. Some of you all will start doing that when you code, and you'll be like, Evans! All right. Yo, am I wrong? Hundo P. All right. Why would we want to do something like this? What is the use case? Right? I will pay you later. So, the idea is at some point you will start to use a lot of class syntax because we're transitioning over into object-oriented JavaScript, and that's what the foundation for React is built on. So, here we go, all the highlighting. You'll be able to create a class person using this powerful constructor method that Eric went over already. Yeah, good to go? Okay, the idea is that if you pass it in an object props, right, like some sort of property object, which looks like just a, how am I saying this? You ever heard of this term POJO? Plain old JavaScript object? Okay, that's the last time you're going to be saying it. Just like a regular JavaScript object with key values. This is the mass assignment where I put in props, it has a key of name, key of favorite color, so this .name is really the props object .name, Winfield. So this .name becomes, okay, very good, yes. And then this .favorite color becomes red, right? If it's about the destructuring, I'm gonna get back to it. Yeah. Okay. However, instead of props, if I destructure and I create a variable name called name and favorite color at the same time, it's going to pull name. This is the object destruction syntax we just went over, right? I'm going to pull name from props, so it's going to be Winfield. Name is a new variable with a value of Winfield string. Favorite color is now a new variable that exists with the value of red as a string. So the difference between this.name equals props.name, or if this.name is named, this is the syntactical sugar that you're saving. So if you want to continue doing this, good go. But if you want it slightly more sleek, that's all this is. And it's just syntactical sugar.
How does it know to get from the prop, like the original prop? Whereas in the other one, you pass it in.
Correct. Here, right, it's getting props, like when I call it. So the idea is I would do something like new person with a props object. Yeah, so, boop. Yes, very good. Yeah, yeah? Cool. All right, what's, you good?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it just saves you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keystrokes. Syntactical sugar. But those 5 keystrokes add up over time, let me tell you. Cool. All right, great. Question is answered. What's
I just want to understand what is line 20, is that line? Yeah, line 20 is doing.
It is doing exactly what 22, 23, and 24 are in one line.
Okay.
So powerful.
So pilot, are we just taking what's inside pilot, or we're assigning something to it?
I'm sorry, what?
What is pilot in line 20?
So because of this curly voice syntax, it is syntactical sugar. It is a shorthand. It is a shortcut for writing line 22. So I can create multiple variables based on key values that already exist in an object. And I can do it very quickly, as opposed to doing this. You can imagine that if I wanted to pull something else like guidance, I would only have to type guidance here. But if I wanted to make it the old way, and I'd have to go, here we go. There we go. You bored yet? It's also prone to error.
So this isn't reassigning variables.
No, it is creating new objects using the object destructuring syntax. Good. Yeah.
So when you use the const, can you pivot the object into this structure?
Can you edit the object? Const does not create an immutable object. It creates an object. Who here, before I get into that? So the answer is, what was the question again?
Yeah, what with using the const inside and using the destruction for the object? Are we allowed to change the value inside that const?
Are you allowed to change value? Yes.
Even with the const keyword?
Yes. How do we feel about varlet and const? Gladiator style, like check or hold. Okay, const follows the same rules.
I thought you can't reassign variables.
You cannot reassign variables with const. Yes, you're correct. You cannot reassign variables with const. This is the assignment operator. And as you can see on 22 to 25, it is the equivalent of creating it for the first time. It is the initial assignment.
What's the point of line 12?
What's line 12? Oh, creating the object? The idea is that you have some object. If you want to create multiple variables based on key value pairs that exist, you can do that. And the use case is what we just went over. It's just syntactical sugar. It saves you a few keystrokes. Okay, good.
So the simple way is just to move the spaceship to the right.
That's correct.
Everything.
Yes. Yeah, this is just the syntax, because if we had not gone over this today and you were to see literally this in a Stack Overflow, you'd be like, okay. You know what I mean? And that's literally what today's for. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Oof. All right, so the next thing is the key value assignment shortcut. This one is where it gets bizarre. Again, things that if you were to see it on Stack Overflow, and you will, without the explanation, it gets wacky fast. If I have an object, right, and I want the key to be the exact same thing as a value of a variable that already exists. I don't have to write pizza pizza. I can just write pizza. For example, pizza object 1, I have pizza pointing to a value of a pizza variable. Sorry, my hands are out of control. Restaurant pointing to a variable of restaurant. So if the key and the value, they look the same, you can just do pizza object 2, pizza restaurant.
I'm assuming this works with like nested objects too.
Yes.
So you will only do line 55 if line 56, 57 already exists.
That is correct. It has to be a variable. Otherwise, if it's a string, it's just going to assign it to be a string.
You don't need to do 59 to 62. Maybe you're doing 65.
What I'm trying to say is 59 to 62 and 65 are the exact same thing. Cool? But that's what I'm saying, right? Like the idea that if I were to tell you I can make an object without key values, like a key semicolon value, and I was like, oh, hey, this is valid JavaScript, you'd be like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? This is just syntactical sugar. This is known as the key value assignment shortcut, or if you really want to Google it, I think it's enhanced object literals. It just means that it's a mo-beta enhanced super version of an object literal, because you're just making an object literally, like const, right? Make me a pizza. And you're just going to go boop, boop, with the key of topping and the value of delicioso. Then you just drop in these powerful yeet that ha emojis and you're good to go. Cool?
Can we use this sugaring constructor?
Can you use the sugaring constructor? Yes.
So without this dot name, this dot color.
Here it's trickier because this dot name, you're assigning this keyword of with the key of name to a variable name. So it won't actually work here. It would have to be exactly the same, and this will never really work. All right, cool. So this is what is known as like the spread operator. So before I get into what the spread is, let me talk about why we want to learn something like this. The idea behind the DOM, how do we feel about this? It's too late, I'm already erasing it. So, no big deal. All right. So the idea behind the DOM is you have like, all right, I'm gonna spoil something for you. Are you ready? Now that you're all web developers, here's the dirty secret. The web is nothing but just lists and links. Cool. Linked lists. No, I'm just kidding. That's not correct at all. But it's just like, think about any website you go to. All right, you're on Bookface. All right, you're like, oh, cool. Let me see what everyone's up to. It's just a list of all the posts. Then you click on one. It's a link to that post.
So, would you say that, like Google Earth is just a really elaborate series of lists?
It is a beautifully rendered list of locations.
Yeah, I can totally buy that. Fair enough.
All right. Ooh, that was bold, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, someone has asked me some weird stuff before, and I was like, wow, that didn't fit. But either way, the idea is that like I have all these like li tags, right? This just should be lowercase. The point in React is that if I create this unordered list, and I want to do some powerful DOM manipulation, what we do right now is we basically either replace the whole unordered list and we slap on a brand new unordered list with brand new list items. We can also grab each individual list item and then maybe there's like an update button right in here. If you click it, then you can like put in something and then it updates this li. All right, that's like basic DOM manipulation. So far so good. This is all like theory. the way React works is DOM stands for what? Yes. What is that middle word? Object. So the idea is that objects are primitive or non-primitive. I didn't sound as confident. You know what I'm saying? Who says primitive? Who says non-primitive? Who says who cares because they're passed by reference? Right? Yeah, objects are passed by reference, right? They're just primitive, non-primitive? It's not. Yeah, nobody really cares, right? It's not important. The idea is that they're passed by reference. So if I'm trying to take this li and it has a text of Jack, Jack's junks, right? Over here. What?
Jackie.
Jackie junks?
Yeah, he's in Jackie.
They call you Jackie here? Oh, Jackie. Oh. Sorry. Jackie's junks. You cool with that, by the way? Is that cool?
Why?
This is way more engaging.
Sorry, I grew up with a karate master named Mr. Chan, so I spell it differently. So, Jackie. Can we get to learning, please? Jackie's junks. The idea is this li is an object. When I compare two objects, right, I use this triple equal, and if I have an li and I want to replace the li with a new li, they cannot be equal the way that React works. If I want to say Jackie's junks, if I wanted to do this, Jackie's junks, this is an li tag, and I'm like, ruh-roh, I done goofed, I made a boo-boo. I need to now replace this object, this li tag, with a new li tag that is the correct spelling. I need to have, in fact, a different object, because if it's the same object, this is how React works. It goes, oh, you have an li tag, and you want to replace it with another li tag. If they're the same object, even though the text on the inside is different, React's going to go, oh, it's the same object. There's no change. And it's not going to update the DOM. What we need in React is an li tag that has the wrong spelling and a separate li tag object with the correct spelling, so that when React looks at it, it goes, oh, you want this li to be replaced with this li. Those are different objects. Cool, got you, fam. And it's going to slap on the new one for you. Because of that, it needs to know when you make a copy of something, or you make a copy of an object, it needs to be a different object. How do we feel about just that concept so far? So let me make some copies of objects, and I'll show you how we can run into an error and why the spread operator is v-money. So.
What do you mean by same? If the attributes are different, is it considered as same or not?
If the attributes are different, remember objects are passed by reference. So here's the idea, right? Just broad strokes. I have a li tag, right? I'm just going to be like li object, boop, 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 right? And it's just going to be Jackie's John. I don't know why I needed to look at that. I'm so stupid. I'm sorry. If I wanted to replace this li tag, I cannot do something like this. Li object, right? I want to make a copy of it. I can't be like li object 2 is equal to li object, and then do li object 2 and be like dot inner text, and then be like, haha, just kidding, Jackie. Oh no, actually I did that wrong. Embarrassing. And then try to slap on li object 2 to the DOM. If I have object 1, right, let's just say this was like really nested, it was really complicated, right? I can't just be like, oh, let me just make a quick copy of it, and then change the text of it, and then try to slap on object 2 to the DOM. Because li object 2 and li object, how does the computer in memory understand them? Different or the same?
Different.
I'm sure.
Directions unclear. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's start with some var nastiness. All right, var, right? Object. Oop. I'm very hungry, so you're gonna see a lot of this. Ooh. All right, very good. So if I have this object, right? Cool. And I try to, very good. If I try to make object 2 and then have it be a copy of object 1, let's take a look at object 2. Powerful stuff. If I do object 2 and I'm like, yo, just kidding, I want to change something about this object, and I want to say something like yeet, all right, and I put your boy. And I look at object 2 and I go, oh wow, key value pairs as I intended. But let's take a look at object number 1. Gasp! Because objects are passed by reference. When I made this copy of object 2, what I really said was, hey, I'm going to have a new variable, and it's going to point to the same place in memory as object number 1. So if I adjusted object 2, and it's sitting in memory here, when I say, hey, give me object 2, it's going to give me that same thing. If I say object 1, it's going to give me the same thing because they both exist in the same place in memory. So they are passed by reference. So going back to this obscure example, if I try to make a copy of object 2, and then I make some changes, and now I'm trying to replace li object 1 on the DOM with li object 2, React is going to go, oh, but they're the same object. I'm not going to change it. So the problem becomes now I need to make a copy of li object 1, but it cannot be the same place in memory. I need to make a separate object. That's what we're trying to do.
So this, could you just put li object 2 as like a empty string, then plus equals or something like that? I'm thinking just kind of abstractly. For this
I think you're
really-
trying to solve this exact problem,
Yeah.
and that's not the goal here.
Okay, that's fine.
So the goal is that I need to create a separate object in memory.
So to do pretty much the same thing, we need to use object assign, the first one.
You mean this one?
Yeah, and the second thing is what you change, right?
Yeah, so let's do this. Ready? Are we cool with this? Can I blast this?
Yeah.
Blast it! All right, great. Sounds good. So there are 2 ways to do this. This is the ES5 way, and this is the ES6 way. So if I have something called mud, that I don't actually remember that. I think I did this lecture like last Halloween. Oh my god. See you in 2 seconds. Sorry. It's terrible. But what I want to do is I want to make a copy of it, and I want to add some key value pairs. So I took a copy of mud, I spread out all of the key values of mud, and I also added parents and their expectations. I'm saying to all the kids across the land. Parents just don't understand. All right, so if I do mud and I try to triple equal mud copy, I actually get false because they're different objects. That's what this spread operator is doing. How do we feel about the spread operator? It's just a syntactical sugar for object.assign, which is like the ES5 way. It takes in the target, an empty object in this case, and you want to put in all the key values of mud copy into this object, which is a brand new object. And then you would have to add in more key value pairs. So the spread allows you to add key value pairs and create a new object at the same time. It's just syntactical sugar.
So is mud copy and mud copy two separate things?
That's correct. Yeah? All right, how do we feel about the spread operator? Okay, let's take a look at mud copy. Mud copy. If I want to make a brand new object, like mud copy 3 using the spread operator, but I wanted to add a key value before blood, how would I do that?
Just spread at the back.
Spread it out in the back?
Yeah, then you don't
You just add the key before.
You add the new one before you add the one that is the spread. That's what I meant.
I don't know why I thought repeating that would make it any better.
I don't know. Just like,
And there it is. I just made a brand new object.
I'm good to spread at the back.
I mean, everything in context, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how you do it, right? So it allows you to create an object and allows you to add key values at the same time very quickly. Cool? All right. Don't worry, we're almost there. Actually, we're there. Congratulations, that's really about it. Yeah. What's up?
Is it always 3 dots?
Yes. It will work for arrays as well. If you want to create a copy of an array, because an array in JavaScript is an object, yeah. So if you want to create a copy that doesn't hold the same memory space, you can just spread out all the indexes of an array as well. Cool. All right. Cool. I've hogged you for about an hour 16 plus break. So if there's no questions, that's all I have for you today. Ooh.